welcome to Hollywood Crime Scene. This is Rachel Fisher.
Hi, this is Desi Jedeikin.
How you doing, Des?
I'm okay, Rachel. I'm feeling a little down, actually. We got a review on iTunes that said that the show is brilliant and they love everything about it except for one thing, and that is the one episode that I used a cough drop because I was dying of the flu, and apparently I was sucking and smacking into the mic.
Which is the first time you've ever gotten that complaint about sucking.
Yes. People love when I'm sucking and slurping.
That's a signature Desi
That's a signature,
sound.
yeah. I mean, perhaps you don't like it as much when you don't have, it's not like a point of view porn where I'm looking up at you slurping and sucking.
And gurgling.
And gurgling and choking. It wasn't as good. But I will have you know that I am working on getting better. Thank you for your concern for my health in the review. Oh, I'm sorry. You were not concerned that I was dying of the flu. You were only concerned about your ears hurting and your own trauma going into something that you had to listen to for one episode. But I am feeling much better. Thank you. For those who have cared.
We're not going to edit that. We're not going to edit that clearing your throat out for solidarity. I just want you to know that, Desi.
No, because I am still suffering from the flu for over a month. There's an epidemic going on in the country.
It's bullshit that the fake news media isn't even talking about it.
Seriously, talk about fake news. It's like, what did Trump say at the end of his tweet? Like, maybe someday will anyone care about my flu and all that I've suffered for the past month and a half? Maybe someday they will. I don't know. But you know what? I grew up an abused child, and I don't think anyone cares about my feelings, especially Ryan Darling, who complained about my sucking. Ryan, I'm sure we would probably be best friends, and we would be bitches to each other in real life. So I'm not mad at you at all. I'm not a hater, and I will try to stop sucking and slurping on the mic, and on the real mic, not the mic in air quotes.
Because that's a Desi Jedeikin promise.
Right.
She's never going to stop slurping on the quote unquote
I'm
mic.
doing my best here. I am Trash from Florida. I'm not Dan Rather. I'm not a professional broadcaster.
Desi really
I just feel like if I can't talk back to you on your review, you come to me personally, give me this complaint, because now what am I going to do? I can't edit your review and be like, hey, here's what happened. And I just want you to know Rachel gave me that cough drop to help me because she cared. And I didn't realize I was sucking and slurping because we don't have a producer who's like, hey, Desi.
Only one of us went to vocal classes when we were growing up because Desi was an abused child.
Right. My mom didn't pay for lessons as much as I begged for tap.
Wait, you didn't get to take tap class?
No, I didn't get to take any classes. I had to sit on the stump of a cement driveway and stare at grass. And glass. There was probably a broken bottle. That's how it was in my, like a tuna can in the front yard. I don't know. That was my childhood. But I'm sorry your ears hurt for a little bit. I'm sorry.
Ryan, we love you, and we're glad
Thank
that you
for
listen.
listening, and the content is really what matters.
Right.
So
we're happy that you like the
Thank
content.
you for the half compliment and for singling me out, because I do deserve recognition, even if it's negative.
We will work on our diction, both of us. I know there's room for improvement with myself.
We all have room for improvement. I'm sure you're not perfect either, but please send me a tape recording of you speaking off the cuff for an hour or more, and let me hear what I can pick out about you. Sorry.
I'm so turned on right now.
I know. Okay.
I'm so turned on.
So,
I've been a naughty girl this week, Desi.
oh, like what? Oh,
I didn't watch the episode of Gianni Versace.
well, Rachel, you were actually the only one hurt by your actions because this was the best episode so far, and we have not been fans of the first two episodes.
No,
both
we have
Rachel
not.
and I did hear good things about the episode before I watched it, and I knew that it was featuring Judith Light, who is one of the best.
Who's a gay icon?
I mean, she's amazing.
Right.
It's
I
kind of
love
hard
her.
to believe what she came from. I mean, I knew her from Soap Days before she was on Who's the Boss, but she kind of became famous as this sitcom actress when she's like way much more than
She
that.
also has played a judge on Law and Order SVU several times.
Right. So she's sort of the star of this episode, I would say.
That's fabulous. I have to watch it.
Yeah,
now.
it's really good. So I'll just give a brief rundown, I guess, about what I thought about the episode. The thing I think I liked about it was, unlike the first two episodes, this was very linear and a single story. from
Cool.
start to finish. It just focused on the murder of, oh gosh, his name is slipping my mind.
Lee?
Lee Miglin. Miglin, I think, is the last name. And that's the older man who was murdered third by Andrew Cunanan after his friend and his ex-boyfriend in the first two murders.
Right.
He was in Chicago. As we've said before about the first two episodes, Ryan Murphy is really pushing the gay angle of these murders, and like Andrew Cunanan had some kind of thing about it, like maybe hatred towards
Like a
gay men who had
internalized homophobia?
maybe he had internalized homophobia or hated successful gay men who had what he thought he deserved or something.
Right.
Because Lee was really wealthy. He was married, and the family has never admitted. I think even when we did the episode, the infamous cough drop episode, I think it was the Gianni Versace one. It was considered random. Like no one knew why he was murdered. There was no
wasn't anything
connection.
stolen.
There was no connection between him and Andrew Cunanan. There was nothing stolen. But this episode of this TV show, they really pushed this narrative, like not even subtly, that it was they had fucked. Andrew was an escort who Lee had hired previously. And Andrew showed up like, hey, I'm in town, Lee, let's get together. And Judith Light, who plays the wife, was out of town. She has some kind of cosmetic or perfume thing, and she was doing like a QVC type show. She's out of town. Andrew calls Lee. Lee's like, hey, my wife's out of town, come over. And it was pretty sad. He's played in the show by Mike Farrell, who's kind of an oldie time. Was he in MASH? I think he was in MASH. He'll correct me. It was really sad. It's a really good episode because it's devastating. It's really brutal. You see a lot of the abuse and torture that Lee went through.
Wow.
You know what else you see, Rachel?
What, boobies?
You see the ham on the desk.
What? You see the ham?
Yeah, the ham is there. And there are details that I personally have never heard. And to this day, the family denies that any of this is true. But in the show, they kind of make it seem like the wife was sort of in denial and making a cover up. There wasn't a scene of her saying, cover this up, but it was more like, you know what I mean? The cops kind of got the impression that it was not good. They also show the murder of the fourth victim, who was actually a random victim.
He stole the car.
He stole the truck, and that was pretty sad scene also. So I think I liked this episode because it was sort of very standalone. It was focused in on one thing. There was no flashbacks or fantasy aspects to it that there have been in the past episodes. And it was just really hard to watch. And
I love it. I'm all over it.
It's really good. The other thing I loved on a superficial level was the decor of the Miglins brownstone or like mansion apartment thing. It was like very 80s or 90s, like all white.
Yeah.
And kind of just very, very rich, but like
I
just
know
like
what you
that
mean.
all white kind of,
Like Mr. Chow's.
Right. So that was really good. The performances were all good. Darren Criss was really good. He kind of got to do that psychopath thing, which I think has been his strong suit. And
Very creepy.
I feel like there was one more thing. I don't know. It's just sad because whatever you want to think about what happened, clearly they loved each other, the married couple, the wife and husband. I don't know how I feel about them outing him in that way. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because it's never been confirmed by the family. So technically they're basically outing this guy without confirmation.
I wonder if when that murder happened at the time, there was any speculation in the news stories, or if that speculation was just from citizens talking amongst themselves.
I mean, it's a very easy leap to make because there was no connection.
Right.
We all know that Andrew did do escort kind of work. So it's like an older man. The other creepy thing is he had a chapel in his home, so he was really religious.
Whoa.
And they show the chapel, and it's kind of a creepy... It's just a good episode. Like, I feel like you're going to really like it, Rachel.
I'm excited.
And if you haven't seen it yet, I do feel like it's the strongest episode. One thing I did, I was kind of reading some reviews or recaps just to see what other people kind of thought. And one interesting thing I was reading, and I can't remember what it was. It might even have been like a Twitter or a tweet conversation. And I definitely agree with it. People were saying how they don't think this is as good as the OJ one. And someone said they feel like it's being stretched to 10 episodes when there just isn't as much story as there was with the OJ story. And that could be why some of these episodes feel a little nothing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I
Right.
kind of agree that might be the case. There's just not as much content to fill out 10 episodes of a series, like hour-long episodes with this case. And they're kind of stretching it out and filling it up. Because it's like, at this point, I'm thinking, what are the next...
Right.
I mean, was it 8 or... It's like 10 episodes, I
Yeah.
think. And it's like, what are the next 7 episodes going to be? We've
Right.
already gotten... So we have the big murder, I guess.
We've
the,
seen
the,
it.
Right, and then this one, and then there's the 2 friends I guess they haven't shown yet. But it's like, what could that possibly be? 1 or 2 episodes more? And then we still have... So it is kind of curious to me how they're going to fill it out.
Yeah.
But I guess we will see.
Right.
And then I'm sure next week we will get Rachel's opinion
We'll
on...
get my take on both episodes
Right.
next week, briefly on the one we just talked
Right.
about.
So yes, that
I'm
is my...
sure I'll confirm that I loved it.
Rachel probably will agree with me.
We agree on a lot of stuff.
You're going to like it. It's
I
good.
know. I will.
As a standalone, it even stands alone. Like, you don't have to have seen anything or know anything to watch this episode, and it's like a really good Law and Order episode.
Yeah,
like,
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's completely standalone. Everything is in this episode that you need to know. So yeah, it's good.
Cool.
I'm on board now.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So let's get to our main topic.
Okay.
We're talking about Disneyland this week. And I don't know about you. Actually, I do know about Desi. I'm not going to pretend I don't know. Desi and I are both adults who love Disneyland.
Right.
They're-
Not like in a weird way. I don't wear like the pens or anything.
There are varying degrees of adults who love Disneyland.
Right.
I would say we're maybe on the milder.
I have a nostalgia for Disneyland because I did go there as a child. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I like going there. I don't.
You're
have
an
to-
adult who you're in the category of you're an adult who still enjoys going to Disneyland, which there are plenty.
Right, but I'm not a fanatic, I would say.
I've had friends throughout my life who are the adult fanatics of Disneyland,
Right.
who have all the merch and have all
Yeah.
the pins and know all the like weird tips and tricks and stuff about the
Yeah.
park, which I know a fair amount of them.
I know some of the tricks just because I don't like waiting.
Right.
Right.
And I know, I mean,
The thing with Disneyland is I get in for free pretty much as I want. So I can go very unstressed and just kind of, I don't have this pressure to do everything.
Right.
Because it is expensive. And
Oh
I
my
feel like that
God.
adds this whole other element to it where you want to get, but I can just go, I'll just go here. I'll hang out. Like, I don't care that
Right.
much to get everything done. So it's always like a very stress-free experience for me. But I do like the nostalgia and I like the old rides. Like, I
Yeah.
will go on the Fantasyland rides.
I
Just
love
because
it.
I like the look of it. I like the art direction. I love Small World. Like, I like all of that stuff.
I love all of the aesthetic in Disneyland. I'm not a California Adventureland. If you're not from California or you've never been to the Disneyland park, California Adventureland is a newer park that was built less than 20 years ago,
Right.
adjacent to Disneyland, and it's just less flushed out compared. I mean, it's newer. I never go to California. I've been
Well,
to
because-
California Adventureland, but I'm not a fan of it personally.
I've gone, like I said, because I can get in for free. I've checked it out numerous times. I
Right.
do like the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror ride.
That one
And I
is
like
cool.
the one that's over California.
soaring over
Yeah,
California.
soaring over California. But in general, it's not something I go to
Right.
anymore. Like, if I'm with people who haven't been, I'll go check it out with them. But I kind of like, let's go here and here. Like, we don't have to see
Right.
all the other parts.
I mean, here's
But,
the
yeah.
reality. I know Disneyland Park like the back of my hand. It's kind of stupid. I have been going to Disneyland since I was a baby.
Right.
I grew up in California, so it wasn't abnormal to go. And when my parents were still together, I think that was like we would go as a family.
Yeah.
But I've been, I went as a teen growing up. I went as a young adult. I still go. I try to go
I like
once a
it.
year. I really, really love
It's
Disneyland.
fun.
I've been at the park like I've closed down that fucking park before.
I go at least once a year too.
Yeah, I love it. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I'm a huge fan of Disneyland, so I was so excited to do this episode today. Because Disneyland is this iconic place and Disney is iconic, there are myths and legends and lore about the park. It is absolutely, in my opinion, the happiest place on earth. So any sort of scandalous things that have occurred at the park, including death, including murder, they're obviously not talked about, but they are whispered about. And there are even rumors, urban legends about deaths that occur at Disneyland that I grew up hearing, such as, I don't think this is true at all, but like I've learned, I don't think it's true, but there was always this rumor or this urban legend going around that like they don't let you legally die at Disneyland. You have to legally die at like the hospital or like just outside the park.
Right.
I don't think that's true. I think that's like
that's illegal, probably.
Yeah.
But like doctor a document.
Yeah. So that's one of them. But there have been several deaths that have occurred since the park's opening, which was in 1955, which my father, he was at opening day Disneyland.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yes, because my dad grew up, well, he spent the first 5 years of his life in growing up in LA. So, let's see. Let's just start from the top. So, like I said before, Disneyland opened July 17th, 1955 in Anaheim, California. And the first opening day of the park was a disaster. But I feel like that's not that abnormal of a thing or weird because
even a restaurant has trouble on our first day up. A theme park is going to be.
I mean, it also was this huge, ambitious project that Walt Disney.
And he's a perfectionist too.
Oh my God, yeah everything. So that happened. I'm going to go through, I've separated this list into deaths, scandals, and weird park incidents, including hauntings. So I'm going to talk about some of the people who have died on the rides at Disneyland, which is a fear. I have a healthy fear about dying on amusement park rides.
I do too, especially the Matterhorn.
The Matterhorn is one of my favorite rides.
But that's the one where you go under some dips. I'm always like, my head's going to get hit.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
You're going to be a little more scared after you hear this. So in 1964, a 15-year-old boy was thrown from the Matterhorn bobsled ride when he unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up, which I feel like if you do that, you're asking for trouble.
Right. He was not following the rules.
That's not following the rule. I would never stand up on any ride or remove my seat. I take the seatbelt instructions very serious.
Especially on that ride because you get jerked around like a lot.
If you've never been on,
hurts.
If you don't know what the Matterhorn ride is at Disneyland, it's a gigantic mountain shaped like the Matterhorn, and you're on these bobsleds on tracks.
It's also the seating of the Matterhorn because you're kind of one in back of each other, so you can really push into each other,
right?
Based on the whatever.
It's not like some high-tech thing you're strapped into either.
No.
It's a little flimsy seat belt, and yeah, it does keep you in, and there's like a metal bar too as well. But you don't, I don't know why you would be like, yeah, let me fucking stand up on this. Because you're going over dips and you're going through tunnels and
it's fast.
There's a Yeti. They've modified the Yeti because I went a few months ago with Ryan. Hey, Ryan.
Hey.
I went a few months ago with Ryan, and the last time I went, they had the old animatronic Yeti, but that they've always had at the park since I remember it as a kid. But they made it scarier recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen it recently.
It was always a scary Yeti that sort of pops out, but now it's like really terrifying. But you don't want to stand up. So this kid, he stood up on the ride, and as they're going through a tunnel, he fucking smacked his head and was and thrown from the ride. He didn't actually die that day at the park, but he went to the hospital and he died 3 days later from his injuries. So
I like when that happens to people when they broke the rules, though, because I'm like, oh, well, then that won't happen to me.
Oh, totally.
I don't like it, but
well, if it's a ride malfunction, that's scarier.
Definitely.
Because you have no control over that. So this is a more famous death incident that occurred on the Matterhorn. On January 3rd, 1984, 48-year-old Dolly Regine Young was in the back seat of the Matterhorn ride. At some point during the ride, her seatbelt became unfastened. It was unclear whether or not she unbuckled it herself or
Right.
not. And during one of the ride's drops, she was flung from the ride and out onto the tracks. She was then struck by an oncoming bobsled, and her head and chest were pinned underneath the wheels, and she was dragged. And she was also decapitated as a result of that. Yeah, so pretty brutal death there.
Yeah.
So apparently the area where she was killed on the ride is known as Dolly's Drop, and her ghost
Is there?
lingers there, according to cast members. By the way, the employees at Disneyland, they're all known as cast members.
Right.
So if you hear us say cast member on the show, we're referring to
someone who
the
works at
employees
Disneyland,
who
yeah.
work there. Yeah. So I was reading some like message boards and some posts about ghost sightings at the park, and when the park is closed and the Matterhorn's closed, the employees, I guess, cast members have to go out onto the tracks, sort of, to like shut down the ride or inspect the ride, I guess. And there are certain cast members who have said, like, I hate when it's my job to do that because I know that I have to go past Dolly's Drop and it just feels
It seems creepy,
eerie.
even without to go into the rides when they're not on.
Oh,
Seems like it
yeah.
would be creepy.
Totally. This is another really famous one. There are many rides at Disneyland and attractions that have been there since the 50s and 60s that are still there, that are iconic. This is an attraction that hasn't been at the park in over 20 years. It's called America Sings.
Oh, right.
Did you ever go? You were in Florida, though, so you were at Disney
No, I
World.
was in California when I was a child, early
right.
child.
Okay.
Yeah. But then Florida, I went to Disney World a lot. But yeah, I know America Sings.
I probably went to America Sings at some point in the late 80s, but I don't remember it. America Sings opened in 1974, and this was an attraction where guests would sit inside a theater that rotated
Right.
around a stationary stage. And this had the famous animatronics, which are the puppets essentially that sing, and they would tell a story. They were these animatronics, and they would sing and tell
Right.
they'd do various tableaus about stuff happening in American history.
Right.
So there's a lot of moving parts in this attraction. On July 8th, 1974, just 9 days after the attraction opened, a cast member named Deborah Gale Stone was killed in between performances. Guests were departing the show at around 11 p.m., and the attraction was rotating back into place for the next cycle. A scream was heard by a guest, and when he turned to look, he saw what appeared to be a young woman being pulled between the moving walls and the stationary wall. It was Deborah. And by the time help arrived, it was too late.
She got crushed.
She got crushed by the moving pieces
Right.
in this, which is such a scary way to go. Anything where you're getting pulled, sucked into something and crushed.
Because you have so much consciousness of what's happening.
Oh my God. It's like when you're a little kid and you're afraid to get sucked into the escalator.
Right.
Oh my God. That was like, that fucking terrified me so much.
I'm still scared I have to like jump.
Oh yeah.
I'm not scared I'm going to get crushed, but like my foot will get jammed.
I don't
or-
want any body parts or appendages getting caught anywhere.
No,
I don't
no.
want that. So America Sings was closed for 2 days to install some safety lights. And the stage in which Deborah was crushed to death remained closed for a year. And America Sings, I guess this was only open until 1988. So I guess I probably could have gone when I was like really little.
Right.
I obviously don't remember it, but yeah, I was like, I mean, that is another thing where cast members have heard a voice saying, "Be careful,"
Oh.
like a disembodied voice. That's sort of sassy.
Yeah.
I feel like
Careful.
careful,
It's like, yeah, like wink.
right? Don't want to get crushed to
I
death.
hope you don't get crushed to death.
Here's an iconic Disneyland ride that has not existed for a long time. It's called the People Mover,
Oh, right.
which I always thought was such a ridiculous name for a ride.
That's like the Tomorrowland.
It was a Tomorrowland ride.
Right.
It's such a lazy name. Like, I don't know. They're fucking moving people.
Right. The future, we are very uncreative. We just call things what they are, very matter of factly.
If you don't know Disneyland, there's different sections of the park that are themed, and one of the sections is Tomorrowland, in which everything is futuristic. And
Tomorrowland should be so much better than it is. Like, it does have Space
Tomorrowland's-
Mountain, and that is like obviously the best roller coastery scary ride at Disneyland.
it's my least favorite section of the park. It's so lame.
It's so lame, but it should be so cool. Tomorrowland, like, it could be really cool,
Especially
but it's such a. I mean, was that cool when it opened?
I bet it was cooler in like the 60s when it was all
Right.
that cool space agey kind of architecture.
I guess, yeah. But now it's like literally the worst section of the park for
It's
me.
the dumbest.
I do go for Space Mountain.
I only go for Space Mountain.
I kind of like the Buzz Lightyear thing too. I mean, but that's lame.
I know this sounds stupid and petty, but I always get irritated when new Disney movies are integrated into the park.
Like when they changed the one to Finding Nemo, the old school ride.
The submarine ride.
Right, they changed it to Finding Nemo. I hate that ride, by the way.
Because part of what makes Disneyland so magical is there's the architecture and the art design is so old. And
I like the old stuff.
I like the old stuff a lot, and they haven't changed a lot of it. So whenever they like add something in, like Jack Sparrow, they added
I
Jack.
get irritated.
I was like, hey, he doesn't belong in this universe. Just because they made a whole movie about
Even
the bride,
sometimes
he doesn't belong.
I love Nightmare Before Christmas, but sometimes I get annoyed that they changed the Haunted Mansion
Me too.
during that period.
Because I love the New Orleans motif.
I like the old one, but yeah,
Right.
I've gotten more used to that one.
that one. I guess I remember Before Christmas is like the exceptional make. I don't care as much, but I don't like. I was, oh my God, I got so mad. I got so mad when somebody said on Reddit, I was reading Reddit about Disneyland. I was like, and then I got into this whole vortex about like watching people's like, or looking at people's proposal photo albums from Disneyland and like Disneyland weddings and just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it was like a 3-hour fucking K-hole I got sucked into the other night. But this one person was like, I think they should make the Tiki Room Moana theme. I was like, no, you can't. Tiki Room is like the one thing in Disneyland. It is so fucking dumb and cheesy
Right.
that I would be so mad if anything changed about it.
That is no.
Because
I don't
it's-
want that.
The Tiki Room can't have any integrity to it. It's so kitschy and stupid, and I love that about
Right.
it.
No, it's perfect as
It's
is.
perfect the way it is.
I also like it because it's like this time where you want to go and you sit in the cold. You need like a break at Disneyland.
or in the heat when it's
right.
really.
That's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
you go in the air conditioned room and you get to sit for like 15 minutes because it's
yeah.
a longish ride.
I
or
was going to
whatever.
mention that. That's an adult Disneyland tip. Is I always go to the Tiki Room when I need a fucking break and my
Oh, me
feet hurt,
too.
and I go and eat Dole Whip and I just sit there and look at my phone.
It's so nice to just
It's
sit in the
great.
tiki room.
I love the
But
Tiki Room.
it would change if there was a Moana theme. I would be irritated. So it would take away some of that relaxation.
Not that I didn't think Moana was a great. I loved
Just
Moana.
make Moana, put her in California Adventure.
Put all the new Disneyland people in California.
Right. Like there's Cars and they got Bugs Life or whatever.
It just makes more sense over there because everything is sort of more modern.
Right.
I don't know.
I
It's so
agree. That's a
stupid.
bad idea.
But look, I guess that is where I am truly an adult fan of Disneyland because I really do care about these stupid things.
I do too.
So the People Mover, a ride that does not exist anymore. It opened in 1967, and this ride was a train-type ride made up of 4 cars in a train on elevated tracks that moved about Tomorrowland. About a month after the ride opened, a 17-year-old boy attempted to jump from one car to another as the train went through a tunnel. So another act of stupidity that was something that could have been avoided. He actually landed on the tracks instead of landing on the next car, and he was hit by an oncoming train of cars. His body was dragged for about 100 feet before the ride was stopped. And this ride stayed open until 1995. But this wasn't the only incident on the People Mover ride. In 1974, a girl was on the ride with 3 of her friends when her mouse ears fell off of her head and onto the tracks. And this girl was like, oh no, I paid $30 for those.
Right.
I'm getting those mouse ears, which I understand. Everything at Disneyland is very expensive to buy.
You're spending a lot of money at Disneyland.
So I get where she was coming from. For me personally, if I had dropped my churro, I would have been like, I'm about to hurl myself on the tracks to go get that churro right now.
Right.
But I still think she should have just let the mouse ears go. But hindsight, 2020. So she was like, we got to get my mouse ears. Two of the girls jumped out of the car, and one ended falling 30 feet to the ground below. They missed the tracks. And this girl broke several bones in her body, including her pelvis, and she ended up in a body cast. And I get it. Mouse ears are expensive, but
I actually lost my wallet on Indiana Jones.
like it fell into the pit.
I can't remember if it was like a purse or a wallet, and they stopped the ride and got it.
Are
I
you
got off the ride
serious?
and I said my wallet fell out because it was in that net container they have in the ride. You put your stuff in it. So I did actually put it in there. And then when I went to get out, it wasn't there. But I didn't try to get out and get it. Like they did stop the ride and get it for you.
That's really nice of them.
So, I mean, I feel like they do that because they don't want you to do stupid shit like this. They'll do it. I mean, I did feel bad that people had to wait.
But here's the thing about Disneyland employees.
It was fast, too. They're like on top of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
The cast members who work there, they're wonderful people. I think Disneyland is run like a tight ship. And,
it is.
That's really nice to hear that they
No,
do
they
that.
do. They'll do it for you.
Totally. This was not the last people mover incident. There was another incident in 1980, and an 18-year-old was killed jumping off the ride in a similar fashion to the boy who was killed in 1967.
Who are these people who jump off the rides and
I
stuff
don't
like that?
know.
Like, I can't even imagine. Even if I thought about it for a second, I
Oh my
would
God.
never do it. There's just no way.
I have never had that thought enter my head. If anything, you're holding on.
I don't have that level of confidence, quite frankly,
I don't
and my
either.
ability to do anything athletic.
Like I can beat this ride.
My greatest fear is dying in a stupid manner. So I feel like I would never jeopardize.
Well, even like the girl in the body cast is like she has to explain to people my mouse ears fell off.
right
And now I'm in a body cast.
And my friend died, or whatever.
I
Did
don't
one of
think-
her friends die?
No, none of them
Okay.
died, but
They were injured.
you have to live to tell the tale that you had a people mover
Right.
incident. So, Desi, you know what Tom Sawyer's Island is.
I do.
That is a attraction in the Disneyland park located in Frontierland.
It's on an island.
It's an island that's surrounded by what's known as the Rivers of America, and it's a body
Right.
of water.
It's kind of where the fireworks and the light, like one of the light show fireworks is held there.
Yes, held over the water. And I have to report a Hollywood crime that's personal to me about the Rivers of America. There used to be forever, as long as I can remember, there was a smoking section overlooking the Rivers of America.
Right.
It was a very nice seating area, and it was very calm, and you were with all the other degenerates who were smoking cigarettes in
I
the
remember
park.
it.
And they closed it recently.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, because when I went there the last time, I sat down and lit a cigarette at this little seating area, and they
You were
yelled at me.
immediately-
Well, they don't yell at you, but they were like, "You can't smoke here."
Excuse me?
I was like,
Yeah.
I've been smoking here for 15 years. How dare? Like, I didn't say that, but I was like,
Yeah.
in my head, I was like, "Oh my God, this was my
Excuse me, yeah. Mice aren't allowed to smoke. They always have some like terminology,
right." They're very nice about it and like
but it's very culty.
innocent.
Actually, I had one time I went on this Winnie the Pooh ride at Disneyland, and it broke down, and everyone was sitting there, and I was like cracking jokes, and I said something like, "What happened? Did Tigger take a dump on the tracks?" Because they always have like storyline reasons
Oh,
why
yes.
things broke down, and the cast member was like, "Honey spilled on the tracks," and I was like, "What?" She's like, "Honey spilled on the tracks," and her face she died inside every time she had to say that honey
That's
spilled on the
amazing.
tracks, and I was just kind of like, it was like talking to like a cult member,
Right.
because they have no choice but to do this kind of nonsense.
I love that Desi has to interject. What happened to Tigger?
Yeah, I was trying to like crack wise. I was like, hey. Like I was joking, but then they really did have a stupid reasoning behind what had happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, side note, I fucking don't like Winnie the Pooh as a character.
I'm not like a Winnie the Pooh person, but I think it was like the only ride I had never been on. So I was like, let's go on this.
I'll go on that ride. I'll
Right.
go on every ride at Disneyland. I'm just saying as a sidebar.
No, there are certain people. I only like Eeyore. Like
'Cause
he's
he-
the only one,
'cause
obviously.
he's goth?
Yeah, he's like the goth. He's the emo character of Winnie the Pooh. So as a child, I did have an Eeyore. Just so you know that I've literally always had the personality that I've had.
I've never met a single child who had an Eeyore.
And as a child, I remember distinctly hating Piglet. Like I fucking hated Piglet, and I loved Eeyore, and I did have an Eeyore stuffed animal. So
I
yes.
just love the thing about how all the Winnie the Pooh characters have a psychological disorder.
Oh, do they?
Have you never heard that before?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
I mean, I've always thought that, but I've also seen other people talk about that. Like
Right.
Eeyore has clinical depression,
Right.
and Piglet has like OCD or
Okay.
something, or anxiety. I
and
think Piglet,
Tigger has some OCD.
Tigger has a
maybe.
meth addiction, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's something wrong with Tigger.
He's like a little.
I
too
do find
lit.
all of the characters irritating, so I think that's why I was like, ugh, Eeyore's the only one worth shit.
I only like the little kangaroo.
Oh, he's cute, but
Rue.
he's just an innocent. Yeah, because the mom
He's
is
the only
Kanga.
character I like.
And the mom is sweet, Kanga.
Kanga's nice,
But whatever.
but Christopher Robin
In general,
also has issues.
it's a shitty storyline. The whole thing.
I just don't like that his name is Pooh.
There's a lot of funny things because there's a cookbook called Cooking with Pooh. Like there's just a lot you can do.
Well, I have another Disneyland story about this. I was in the Disneyland shop with my brother when we were in like middle school or something, and this lady, God bless her heart, this middle-aged woman just like holds up these pair of pajama pants and she goes, "Look, honey, there's poo all over these."
Oh yeah, see,
And
there's a lot of.
But I remember thinking that was like the fucking funniest thing ever. I mean, like
It
I
is
was like
funny.
my brother and I were doubled over like laughing.
Well, especially when they're just so clueless.
Yeah.
You know. But
I just
yeah,
don't-
so Pooh.
I don't like that that's his name. Where did that come from? I want to know.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah, I don't know. Pooh
I
Bear?
actually,
It's not like a brown bear, grizzly bear.
I
Pooh
guess
Bear.
I should tell the Winnie the Pooh story now, segue into that, and I'll go to the Tom Sawyer Island.
Okay.
I'll go back there.
So there is a Winnie the
There
Pooh.
is a Winnie the Pooh story.
Okay.
This is fucking incredible. I love this story. So in 1978, a cast member dressed as Winnie the Pooh was accused of slapping a 9-year-old girl in the face at the park.
I shouldn't be laughing.
Which is such a funny visual.
Listen, kids get irritating.
The girl claimed to have reoccurring headaches from the incident, and so it went to a civil trial.
She sounds like a nightmare.
Look, we all have reoccurring headaches.
Look, one of my favorite things at Disneyland is to watch families come apart by the seams. Like there's
couples.
or couples, but just like seeing families, it's like I get it. You're spending $1,000 probably for a family of 4.
Oh, it's absurd.
Like it's absurd, and just to see them trying so hard to have fun, and like I said, because I don't pay, it's very little stress. I don't feel like I have to go on
Right.
every ride. I can just chill. But to see these people try to have so much fun, and that the fathers get like almost borderline violent with them, and just like the tension in their voices is just amazing to me. I
Right.
do feel bad, but the kids are nightmares sometimes too.
Where it's just like, Tyler,
everything
I told
is
you.
Tyler, Montana, Tanner.
I really do feel for the parents. I really
It's a
do.
lot.
It
It's
is
a
a
lot.
lot. I'm sure my
Right.
parents, when they used to take me, fucking were irritated too.
Why did he hit her? I know there's
Okay.
no excuse, but there had to be a reason, right?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
So there was a trial 3 years later for this. During the trial, the man who played Winnie the Pooh claimed that it was an accident and that the little girl had been tugging on his tail, and that because of his limited vision and mobility in the costume, when he turned around, he accidentally hit the little girl.
I buy it.
I buy it too, and also, even if that isn't the case, first of all, I buy it, but I feel for anyone who has to wear any kind of mascot costume.
It sounds horrible.
Because the temperatures in those costumes
Right.
get to like 120 degrees, and you don't have good vision in them.
Well, you don't have good vision, and I would imagine your body you don't have a good sense of your body
No,
in that
'cause you're in this
you're in a
huge fucking
huge thing, right?
And yeah, so that was the defense of this. After the court took a recess, the defendant returned to the courtroom, this time dressed in the Winnie the Pooh costume.
Oh,
Yes.
was this like the OJ Glove moment?
Yes, this was the extreme version of the OJ Glove moment where he's like, you know
If
what?
it doesn't fit, I must hit.
I don't know what his reasoning was. If it was like, I'm going to show you how fucking cumbersome this suit is.
Right.
So he gets in to the courtroom, and this is an excerpt from the trial. Author David Koenig describes what happened next in his book Mouse Tales: Behind the Ears Look at Disneyland. I'm going to read you an excerpt from this book about the trial. Taking the witness stand, Pooh answered the lawyer's questions by nodding his head and stomping his feet. What do you do at Disneyland? McRae asked. That's the lawyer's name, McRae. What do you do at Disneyland? McRae asked. Pooh got up and did a jig down the aisle. The courtroom audience burst into laughter. Have the record show that he's doing a two-step, noted the judge. By calling Pooh to the stand, the attorney was able to present a lovable, sympathetic witness who wouldn't and couldn't hurt anyone. The bear demonstrated that he couldn't have slapped the little girl in the face as she claimed. The costume's arms were too low to the ground. The jury took just 21 minutes to acquit Pooh on all charges.
See, this is where you want to have Pooh settle. I'm glad Pooh was acquitted.
I am too. I just thought it was so great that, like, could you imagine?
Wait, I like that the idea he did a little jig and the courtroom burst into laugh. It's like, you know what? Like, I still am not going to laugh at that. Like, this is adult people. They burst into laughter seeing Pooh do a little jig.
I love that the judge
They're
was
all
like, let the record
amused.
show
Yeah.
he did a two-step. Oh, now he's doing a rumba.
And everyone's just like, oh, we're just
Oh,
delighted.
it's Pooh. He couldn't have hurt a little girl. So what if he
Can you
did?
imagine sitting there as the victim of this crime and having everyone laugh at your pain? I mean, that makes it better for me in a way. Because it's like, what 9-year-old is like, and I have recurring visions from being hit.
That sounds like it was fed to her by an adult.
Right. The whole thing is nonsense.
They wanted money. Absolutely. So back to Tom Sawyer's Island. In June of 1973, 18-year-old Bogdan de la Route and his 10-year-old brother hid out on the man-made island surrounded by the body of water known as the Rivers of America after closing time.
Ooh.
So that's pretty bold move,
Very bold move.
especially with your 10-year-old brother.
Wait, how did they do that? Were they not with their parents?
They must not. They must not have been. I mean, the older brother was 18 years old. He must have taken
okay, so he
his
took his
little
little
brother
brother,
on
right.
a Disneyland trip.
Maybe they must have had Southern California yearly passes.
No, they didn't, because this guy was from Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
He was visiting,
Okay.
I guess. But that is a pretty bold thing to do. I mean, why would you want to do
Definitely.
that after it closes? What the fuck are you going to do back there?
Well, because you'd be stuck on the island,
You'd
right?
be stuck on the island. What is there to even do? I guess
It's
drink.
not much. I did go to that island once because I was like, well, let me go to Tom Sawyer's Island because I had never been.
Right.
And it's
I
just a
never
bunch of
go.
like fucking heathens running around.
Like little children.
It's just because there's nothing to do on it. It's just like
Right.
running around and there's like little forts and like cubby holes. And so it's just kids running around. It's like, this is where parents send their kids so they can have a break. Like,
I guess.
it was like a nursery.
There's no attractions over there. It's
no,
just...
it's completely.
But for some reason, he thought that was a great idea. After hanging out on the island for a few hours, the brothers decided to swim back to shore.
Oh, boy.
Also, let's just mention the fact that you have to swim. I imagine they just, I mean, obviously they didn't swim there because they just hung out. I think you get ferried on a little motorboat,
Right.
basically, to go there. And it's not far away from...
It's not a far swim, but still, the water is probably.
The water's disgusting.
It's like attraction water.
Yeah, no one wants attraction water. So they're swimming back to shore, and Bogdan's brother couldn't swim, so he rode on his older brother's back. Halfway through their journey to shore, Bogdan drowned. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh in the middle of that
Wait.
sentence.
So which one drowned?
The older brother.
But then wouldn't the other one drown too?
Well, it says that his
I'm
younger...
surprised it's even that deep. Like,
Dude, can you imagine, like, your ride drowns?
I mean, how did he not drown?
It says that his younger brother survived by dog paddling.
Sorry.
And if I was Bogdan's ghost, I would have been irritated. I would have been like, so you can swim.
That is.
I drowned for nothing?
What, could you have started dog paddling when I was sinking?
Right.
like,
Like you just wanted to ride on my back?
that is so bizarre.
So his younger brother survived by dog paddling and was eventually rescued by overnight workers. And Bogdan's body wasn't found until the next morning. How creepy
How
is
far
that?
could it have? I mean, how
They
hard?
couldn't find him. I guess he sunk to the bottom.
So I guess that's pretty deep. I mean, they do have that huge, what's it called? Like a Mississippi River boat.
Oh,
That
yeah.
goes around there?
It's Mark Twain's riverboat.
Right. So that must have to be pretty deep for that boat to go on it.
Right.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, at least I'm glad if there had to be a brother who died, I think it should be the one who created the whole plan. Do you know what I mean? Like,
What was he doing to
at
his
least
little brother
at least
on that
the little
island?
brother didn't die. An innocent
Why were they
victim.
there? What were they fucking doing?
I know, hide out in somewhere cool where you could go around the park at least and not be stuck on Tom Sawyer's Island.
I just don't understand why you want to be at the park when it's closed, unless you're
I could see the appeal of it.
like doing drugs with your friends there. Maybe
You wouldn't want to like go into all the attractions and like poke around.
I mean, yeah, I guess I would want.
I could see the appeal if I was in the park, but not to be stuck on Tom
that's
Sawyer's
the worst
Island.
part to be
If I
stuck
had to
on.
swim and anything, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, fuck that. So this was not the only event that happened at the Rivers of America. In June of 1984, 18-year-old Philip Strahan was at Disneyland during a grad night trip. Now, grad night at Disneyland is a tradition for Southern California residents. For their high school graduation, they all get to go to Disneyland. They close down the park and they get to go. It's just a bunch of fucking teenagers.
Ugh.
I mean, I feel like that would have been really fun as an 18-year-old, but just thinking about it now, like,
Right. No one
that
wants
sounds like a nightmare. Because when you're 18, you just want to, like, cause a fucking ruckus. And, like, the park just being full of nothing but
right.
18-year-olds. I think this also happens at night, too.
They stay open later.
Yeah, just for them. So this kid, Philip, was at the park and he was drinking, which isn't an uncommon thing on these trips either. When he stole a motorboat from one of the cast members only area at Tom Sawyer's Island in an attempt to fucking ride around on this boat while he was drunk, I guess. So he ends up crashing into a rock because he doesn't know how to pilot this boat. And he was thrown from the boat and he drowned.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
that's too bad.
that's why you should not drink underage. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually surprised they aren't more strict about checking bags for alcohol.
They do have security checkpoints.
Right. But you'd think on that night they'd be a little extra.
I'm sure they've gotten better about it over the years.
Right.
This was back in the
Early
80s,
yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, I know I have friends and acquaintances who did grad night at Disneyland
Right.
in the early 2000s.
I mean, the truth of the matter is there's only so much you can do if people are going to act a fool.
Right, or you pre-game before you get there.
Yeah.
You take an ecstasy pill or
Right.
whatever. Like,
Right.
you can take an edible.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
So, okay, so Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Oh, yeah.
I love Thunder Mountain
too.
Railroad.
It's a good one.
It's a roller coaster type ride, and you go through this very old Western
It's like a train.
town.
It's like a runaway train.
Yeah, it's a runaway train with like big red rocks and like you go
It's one
through
of the
these
good.
mines.
It's one of the good sort of scary rides at Disneyland.
Right.
Like a roller coastery vibe.
Yeah.
I like it.
And yeah, it's a great ride. So this is a scary story because this is an incident where this guy had no control
Right.
over what happened next. On September 5th, 2003, a maintenance error caused the front of the train to derail, which is my fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And it ejected passengers and killed 22-year-old Marcelo Torres. 10 other passengers were injured. I mean, that is just like any instance where I'm on any kind of roller coaster or ride, especially if it's a roller coaster, thinking about the train derailing scares me.
I always think about dying on a roller coaster, but that's part of the thrill, I think, right? Like,
Right.
I feel like part of me is like, if I think about it, it won't happen. But if I'm not worried, then that's probably like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I feel like if I'm scared about it, then I'll be safe.
Because what are the
Yeah.
chances?
Right. So it's like, it's the ones who don't even care about these things. You're always trying to think of ways why those bad things won't happen to you.
Right. Okay, so here is an incident of a homicide happening on the park
Whoa.
premises. Yes. This happened on March 7th, 1981. Mel C. Yorba, who is an 18-year-old man, got into an altercation with 28-year-old James O'Driscoll when Mel reportedly grabbed James's girlfriend. James stabbed Mel in the heart, fatally wounding him. Now, the parents of Mel sued Disneyland for negligence and sought $60 million. And this was their case for negligence, was that instead of summoning outside paramedics, the park had the Disneyland nurse tend to his injuries instead.
Was it Nurse Minnie?
So this, so the nurse was tending to him, and it wasn't until up to 20 minutes after the attack that he was transported to a hospital. And he wasn't transported by an ambulance or by any sort of official paramedics that came into the park. It was like they took him in a regular, like, plain van,
Right.
and took him to the nearest hospital, where he died along the way. Like, he was dead by the
Right.
time he got there.
Well, this is also a classic case of what's the money? The money is with Disneyland.
Right.
I mean, I'm
Right.
not sure what their negligence was, but that's the obvious person to sue if you want to, you're
They-
upset.
Right. And of course you want someone to blame when your
Right.
kid dies a senseless death. I understand that. Their thing was that, like, why couldn't Disneyland, they were like, Disneyland just didn't want the scene to be made with paramedics. They wanted to cover this
Right.
up.
But isn't this worse of a scene, right? I mean,
I guess. I mean, I don't know. But the doctors said that Mel's chance of survival anyway was really slim.
he got stabbed in the heart.
Yeah, like he
Yeah.
was going to be dead no matter what at this point. It wouldn't have really made that much of a difference had he gotten to the hospital any quicker, they said. So James's lawyers, the defendant's lawyers, they argue that it was an accident, which I thought was weird. During the trial, this excerpt from the trial is fucking, I just thought was like so ridiculous. This is what James's attorney said. I will not deny that O'Driscoll was found at Disneyland with Yorba's blood all over him, Olson said, but I will prove that he is innocent of the charge of murder. Like, did you just hear what you just said?
Look,
Look, my client may have the knife in his hand and blood all over him, hiding in the fetal position on the It's a Small World ride,
Right.
but he is innocent.
it can happen.
James was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 16 years in prison.
16?
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, what do you know about the ashes scattered about Disneyland?
I have heard about this.
So there's lore that there are human remains all throughout the park of Disneyland because people like to scatter their loved ones' ashes there. These are
Those are extreme
adult
Disney.
enthusiasts, I would call that. That's on the level. We really need like a chart, I feel like.
Right.
We need a chart of like levels of Disneyland enthusiasts, adult
I
Disneyland
would say
enthusiasts.
ashes scattered.
I would say ashes scattered is like definitely at the
That's
like
the top
high.
tier of the
That's the top
pyramid.
tier, totally. And like I have a friend who has the Disneyland app that has the ride times,
Oh,
and she doesn't even live in the country anymore. And like I've been to Disneyland with this friend before, and we had a fucking blast when we went together. But she's definitely a Disneyland
I like
enthusiast.
to have those people though because they can worry about all that and make my life easier.
Oh my God. Yeah, she's like a Disneyland encyclopedia. She like knows everything. And I think I know everything about the park.
Right.
Not even on the same level as this woman. So there are ashes reportedly all over the park. And at one point in 2007, a guest was caught sprinkling human ashes into the water of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Oh,
Yeah. So Disneyland tried to say that it wasn't ashes in the news story that I read, but I don't know what else it could have been.
right.
It
Was
was
she
like-
like throwing them onto like the wench sale? Like, what was she doing?
She was like sprinkling it into the water.
Oh, see, I wouldn't want to be in the water. I'd want to be on the land part.
Yeah,
'Cause the
where
water
it
you're
would
just
stay.
gonna- yeah.
It's just going to dissolve and get flushed
Yeah.
out eventually.
Or by like the dog with the keys. Like I want like a
I would want it at the wench sale. Here's the thing. I've heard that the wench sale is going away. Did you hear that?
wait. Yeah, you just told me about that,
Yes,
didn't you?
I've heard. So there's this. This is the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and it's a ride that's been at Disneyland
Because
since,
it's like a rape. It was like a rapey thing initially, but then they switched it to make it less.
No, that's something else. That's in the same
Oh.
tableau area,
They're chasing the women.
but now she has a plate of food.
Right.
Here's,
Okay.
So there was the Pirates of the Caribbean. If you've never been, you're underground essentially, and you're going through. First, you go through a bayou, then you drop down, and you end up in these underground
Right.
caves,
Yeah.
sort of, and you're on this little boat.
That's another good relaxing ride. 'Cause
Oh, it's
cold.
so great.
Yeah.
It's air conditioned in there, and it's great, and it hasn't changed really.
No,
since the
except for the
60s.
Jack Sparrow.
They added a Jack Sparrow animatronic in at the end of
Well,
the
there's
ride.
other Dead Man Tell No, like there's other Pirates of the
hologram.
Caribbean movie stuff inserted.
They
now.
added those in, but for the most part, the integrity of the
Yeah.
ride has remained the same.
Everything's the same, but they just stick them in the old tableaus or whatever.
Right.
Kind of.
But there was one tableau that you passed by, and it was a woman animatronic being chased by a horny man.
Mm-hmm.
And they recently changed it to where he's not chasing the woman anymore. It's implied that he's chasing the food that
Right.
she's carrying,
Right.
which I think that's fine. I don't care. I don't care if they
fine.
change that.
That's fine.
There's another part in that same section where there's like bride for sale.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with them changing it to where they're willing sex workers.
Right. But that's not very Disney, right?
But it is, but to me, I'm like, that's iconic Disneyland, is that it is this sort of seedy seeming thing that's in this kids park
Right.
where it is this very adult.
In general, I'm fine with anything staying the same at Disneyland, even if it's problematic. Like, I mean, there's a lot of borderline problematic things at Disneyland, and you just kind of have to ignore it, I think. Like Splash Mountain is a bit problematic. Like,
I'm not a Splash Mountain fan. The whole Song of the South, that all makes me very uncomfortable. I don't like any of that. And I'm just not really into Splash Mountain. I feel claustrophobic in that ride.
I like Splash Mountain just because it's like another ride where you sit for there's certain rides where I'm just like, I like to sit for a long time.
It's
like,
relaxing, and then
yeah,
it's not
you're
relaxing.
just like, yeah, and then you have the drop and you get all wet. So you have to do that ride like
In the
before
summer.
3 p.m.
You have to do it in the summer too.
Right.
But I'm not a Splash Mountain fan. I never ever want to go on that ride. Yell at me in the comments section. I don't care.
Right.
So there's another thing about Pirates of the Caribbean which I found kind of creepy, and it's that the bones on the ride were real for a very long time. The skeletons. They were actually real human bones that were used. It's rumored that there still exists one real human skull on the ride, and it's the skull that's decorating the Pirate King's headboard. So,
You mean in that like treasure?
yes,
Yeah,
in the treasure room. Here's another popular ash dropping place. It's the Haunted Mansion.
Of course.
In 2002, a guest reportedly sprinkled the ashes of a 7-year-old boy from one of the doom buggies. Those are the little vehicles that you are riding on the tracks. There have been reports of the cast members hearing the sound of a young child crying near the area where guests depart the ride, and it's said to have been that boy.
I love Haunted Mansion. That's
do
one of my
too.
favorite rides.
It's great.
And one of the greatest things that ever happened to me at Disneyland is I was on the Haunted Mansion, and you know when you turn backwards and go down that hill?
Yeah.
That ride got stuck there, and it felt so good. Because you're back, and it was like I was just lying back in like the cold ride, and the pressure of lying back felt really good after standing all day. I can't quite explain it, but I was like, this is the best. I was like, I never wanted the ride. I was like, I need to just lie here for 15 minutes. I was like that for a really long time, but it was completely comfortable, like beyond comfortable. It was like amazing. Anyways.
I got stuck near the disembodied head once, and I did not like that.
No, this was
'Cause
purely
she's
a
creepy.
physical thing that felt really good to have that, like, to be lying back like that. I can't explain it. It just felt really good.
I like that the guy who's telling you to please remain seated, that the ride will start again.
Oh, right.
Is like still doing his spooky voice too. He's like, please remain seated.
Right.
Your doom buggy will, I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly
he's
it.
still in character.
Yeah.
So this actually, the urban legend of the boy's ashes and the boy's child's crying on the ride, this is an urban legend that's actually been going back to 1994. And in the latest version that I saw was the 2002 version. There was another addendum to the story to like make it very 2002, and that is that, and the ride had to be closed down because they thought it was anthrax that she sprinkled.
Oh. Yeah.
So
That's very
2002. But so I don't think that this story is true because there's been so many different versions of it.
Yeah.
But it is, I do think, I mean, I've heard forever that people sprinkle ashes.
It's not hard to believe that people would do that.
Oh my God, I totally believe it. I mean,
Yeah.
people get married at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Like there are sections of the park that are for weddings.
If you love Disneyland, why wouldn't you want your ashes sprinkled there? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense to me.
totally. So Space Mountain, we talked about that earlier in the show. That's the only good part of Tomorrowland, we decided. Please don't at me. That's
Right.
That's just fact,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Don't tell me Star Tour. Star Tour is whatever. It's fine. I like it. It's kitschy. But like, I can take it or leave it. Space Mountain is
I can't go on Star
great.
Tours. It makes me sick.
Okay. I haven't been on it in a long time.
Well, I just get motion sickness from that kind of virtual reality. Like those, I don't know why I get really motion sickness from that ride.
My
So-
mom took me on Space Mountain when I was 5 years old, and I did not want to go on that ride at all. And she took me on it, and it was one of the most terrifying things.
When I went on Space Mountain as a child,
I was way too young for that.
I was
Mom.
probably too young too. I was probably just barely tall enough, but I was like I was taller, so I
Yeah.
probably was still young. I didn't know that it was on tracks. I thought we really were flying.
I did
'Cause
too,
It's
'cause
dark.
Yes.
It's dark, and I was like petrified. But I loved it almost immediately. But I was
I-
petrified, and I was like, "We're flying!" Like,
Loved it when I got older, but when I was 5 years old, I was like, I'm in hell right now.
No.
I'm gonna die. And my mom was, and
that ride petrifies me.
Space Mountain is a roller coaster in the pitch black.
Yeah.
It's pitch black. There's loud music blaring, and there's like stars. That's the only thing you can see is like flashy light,
Right, the
kind
flashy
of. But
lights.
it's pitch fucking black. And I was closing my eyes, like squeezing them tight. I'm 5 years old on this ride. My mom, and I'm like not enjoying myself. And my mom's like, open your eyes, look. And I open my eyes, and that scared me even more because I just see these like scary stars rushing by.
Right, it's scary. It's
But
a
as
good
an
roller
adult
coaster.
and an older kid, I
The
very
worst
much
thing
enjoyed
about
it.
Space Mountain is you wait a long time and it's really fast.
Right. So there are some ghosts that are on the ride. There is a ghost known as Mr. One Way, which I thought was,
I've heard about him.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's like very Twilight Zone, like going my way.
Yeah, totally. It's so, yeah, it is. So he reportedly haunts Space Mountain. He is said to be a burly man with a red face and red hair. So he's basically an alt comic
Right.
that hangs out on the ride trying to pick up chicks.
Yeah, out of his league.
He also has been seen hanging out in the female cast members' dressing room.
Of course.
Of course. Mr. One Way.
Mr. One
What are you doing in here? So he also hangs out in line with the guests, and he gets into empty seats on the ride and then bounces right before the final tunnel, which I wouldn't know how you would know that he bounced because the ride's pitch black. You can't see
Right.
anything. Whatever.
Maybe you feel his essence leave.
You're like, that smell, it's gone.
Yeah. The Old Spice scent.
Other versions of Mr. One Way allege that he's actually a young boy from the 70s. And this young boy is seen to look like a regular kid, not even like an apparition. And he's dressed in 70s clothes, and he's really annoying. He asks a bunch of questions about the park in line. And then he leaves at some point.
The ultimate poltergeist.
Can you
It just annoys you.
Right, just some irritating kid with a mushroom
Some
haircut.
poltergeists throw your furniture around. This kid just irritates the fuck out of you.
Another ghost who's reported to make appearances at Space Mountain. This gal sounds fun. Her name's Disco Debbie.
Wow. I mean,
I want to know her story.
we all want that name.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
That's the best name.
Disco Desi.
Disco Desi.
I was like, I can almost have that name.
When we get big enough where our fans are doing fan art of us,
Right.
we can have a Disco Desi fan art.
Oh, okay.
Seriously, like who draws, who listens to the show? We need some fan art.
Like, don't do it if you're not good, though.
Don't do it if you're going to make us not look better looking than we are. I want us to look cuter than we actually are.
Right. Not like demented.
Yeah, I don't want like a carnival caricature.
Oh, no. Where
No.
like one of our features is prominent.
Yeah, please don't.
Please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Our eyes.
Dude.
Okay, go on.
So, Disco Debbie apparently is the ghost of an old employee at Disneyland who died of an aneurysm behind the ride.
While she was disco dancing.
Dude, I just imagine her in like
Wait,
sequin
but how
tube
does
top
disco happen?
because she glows green.
Oh.
I don't know why,
What,
but that's a cool
disco?
apparition to see.
Right. I honestly, I need her to be like more like Disco Stew from The Simpsons. Like I want her to be more disco,
Right?
Not just glowing green.
I guess that's why and maybe she died in the 70s.
Right. Okay.
She was really into disco.
Look, I had a whole story worked out for her, so I was just disappointed that it was just the green thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I have 2 other crimes that are personal crimes that have happened at Disneyland. I want to report. They're the last crimes. They're actually not crimes per se, but they're scandalous. Okay. So in 1989, I was at Disneyland, staying at the Disneyland Hotel with my family, and I was jumping on the bed with a pen in my hand, and the pen went into my eye, and I had to get stitches. And that's something that's not reported on any of these message boards.
And your parents were neglectful, letting you jump on the bed with a pen.
I texted my mom about it, and I was like, just trying to confirm the details. My mom's like, I don't fucking know. That was like in the 80s. Like, she's like, yeah, I remember. Like, because I jogged her memory about it. But it is the only time I ever had to get stitches. Was a Disneyland-related incident. Mm-hmm. I mean, your parents turn away for 1 second. Look, when you're 3 years old.
My parents turned away for many seconds. I got into all kinds of hijinks.
I mean, like, my poor parents, when I think about that, it's like, they were probably fucking exhausted from a day at the park. And they just wanted to relax.
Just go jump on the fucking bed.
Right. Yeah. And, like, suddenly we're in the ambulance.
Right.
Or wherever. Like,
Pooh should have slapped you.
It was scary. Like, I have vague flashes of it happening. I do still
feel
have
like
a scar.
everyone at some point in their childhood has stabbed themselves with a pen or a pencil, though.
Right.
But not in the eye necessarily, but I do remember stabbing myself in the leg accidentally or something.
I still have a scar. It's actually right next to my eye. Like, it's like barely.
Well, it's very thin skin there. I mean,
Yeah.
it was probably easy to go
I still
in.
have a little scar there. Mm-hmm. And the other incident that happened at Disneyland took place in the 60s, and it involves my dad. My dad, he was visiting his grandpa, who's my great grandpa, no longer with us, rest in peace, Fred Applegate. He was visiting him, who lived in LA, and they went to Disneyland, and they would not let my dad in the park because he had long, dirty hippie hair. And my grandpa raised a scene and was like, you're being very, hippie-phobic to this young man. My dad had a lot of hair-related
I
incidents.
have heard about strict dress requirements for employees, but not for people coming into the park.
Well, in the 60s, it wasn't that abnormal for establishments to ban
hippies.
I've
seen the signs, like no hippies.
Yeah, and my dad, if you look at any pictures of him from the 60s, he's posted plenty on his Instagram before. You can follow him. He is like the biggest looking hippie ever. Like it's obscene how much of a hippie he was. Like, and his hair was like down to his butt.
I don't think I have any Disneyland crimes, but I do have one thing. One of my favorite things I ever saw happen at Disney was one time I was watching this couple, and the girl was taking a selfie of them together, and they were both smiling so happily in the selfie, and then she went to look at the picture, and he was still smiling, and her face completely sunk. And that's like one of my favorite moments that I've ever witnessed.
Got chills. I just got
and I was just like, that is like guys and girls in a nutshell. Like the guys are like whatever, and the girl's like, this is the worst picture. Like she was devastated by the picture.
I've been that girl before.
I know, but it was funny to see the smile and then her expression sink when she saw.
Oh my god.
And I was like, I feel like I've just like intruded on something very private.
I just got a chill.
Like if someone saw me take a selfie like that, I'd be like mortified.
Dude.
So that was a crime. That was a crime of back-facing camera, whatever. Non-front-facing camera. I don't know. It was horrifying, but I did enjoy it, and I tweeted about it.
I think I remember that tweet
because it was a very good moment.
It was chilling.
It's chilling.
It's a chilling story.
The other favorite thing I love, like another crime at Disneyland that I love about Disneyland, is you can see every shape and type of ass at Disneyland. I'm not kidding you.
I love it too.
I have seen every type of ass at Disneyland. Asses I didn't even know could exist. Not just talking about, there are some big fat ones.
It's not even just fat.
I'm not even talking about huge fat asses.
Asses that break the laws of physics.
Asses that you have never thought possible exist at Disneyland. How that's not an attraction, I don't know. I honestly, I would buy a coffee table book of Disneyland asses because you will see them all. I'm telling you, there are asses there's like Iowa asses, there's California
Kentucky
asses,
asses.
and they're in different kinds of pants that you don't even know. You're like, that's what they sell at Walmart probably. There are all kinds of asses, and they're just in your faces. You see them because you're standing on lines. You're going up Tarzan's treehouse. They're right in front of you.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite passions is ass watching.
I'm going to post.
And I love them all.
I should post a picture of this because the best people, it was a duo that I ever saw at Disneyland. And I was fortunate enough to get a good picture of them, were these two older women. They must have been in their 70s, and they were like so Florida. They had the visors on. They were wearing matching outfits. They were riding around red hover rounds.
Right.
And
the people watching at Disneyland is amazing because it's for everyone from all over the world. It's not just America. It's like foreigners.
These ladies were like best friends, right? And they're riding around on these hover rounds, and they both have matching hideous like puff paint jackets on.
The fashion.
And what it said on the jackets, one of them said Thelma and the other one said Louise.
Jesus Christ. The fashion at Disneyland is like nothing I have ever seen.
It's top tier. Fantastic.
It's top tier, handmade. I mean, people go all out with what they wear at Disneyland. And
I go all out.
I fucking eat it up.
I love it. I love it because you can dress as dumb as you want to dress there.
I don't really dress dumb, but I do
sense.
I kind of have like a goth mini. Like I'll wear a black dress and
I
have like black, I have the simple black ears with the sequins and just the red bow. I don't do the new hats. No. I'm not interested in like all the new versions. I want the classic mouse ears.
Right.
So I just wear a black hat, goth mini, but I don't go on goth day or whatever it's called. Have you gone on goth day?
No, I want to go.
I accidentally went. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I saw two goth people crying outside the teacups. Aww. And I had seen tons of goth people that day, and I was like, what the fuck? And I think I tweeted some mean things like Belle and Sebastian. Like I was tweeting all these things, and someone commented to me, they're like, oh, it's emo day. I can't remember the title. I'm sure there's a better title for it. But it's like, you know how they have these like non-official days? Like there's gay day, there's dapper day. Right. So this was like some kind of goth day.
Dude, I want to go on goth day next year.
It was good.
Totally
it wasn't like it wasn't as prevalent as the gay and the dapper days. Like we really see a ton. So it's just enough that I was like, what's going on? But it wasn't like so overwhelming. I was like, oh, it's some kind of theme.
I've never been on any special days. The only kind of special day I ever went on besides New Year's, I've done New Year's a few times before, which is really fun. The only like odd day that I remember was I went on leap year day. Oh. So it was a leap year. So we went, Austin and I, my friend, she's the one with the app that knows all the times of the rides.
Okay.
So we went together on leap day, and it was February 29th. Ooh. And the park was open for 24 hours that day.
Okay.
So we didn't even get to the park because there was so much traffic for some reason. That was a fucking nightmare. Like, we sat in traffic. It's a 30-minute ride to Disneyland with no traffic from my house. 30 minutes.
It's close.
It's so super close. But we sat in traffic for literally like 4 hours. So by the time we got to the park,
you're in misery.
They said that they were at capacity. Oh. And we almost started crying just because we were so exhausted from the traffic and like hungry and just irritated. We weren't actually crying, but we were just at that where you're like, no, we just got out of the car. Like, just let me into the fucking park. It was like midnight, and they did sneak us into the park. We got into the park at like 1 or 2 a.m. Ugh. And it was really fun riding on Thunder Mountain at 5 a.m.
Right.
And everyone's really delirious because they're tired. Yeah. So it was just... It was a good
once in a lifetime.
Yeah, and we left like really early in the morning, but yeah,
that's fun.
Sorry, I hope everyone enjoyed my Disney stories.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I like hearing about it.
I love Disneyland.
It's good.
We should go soon, Desi.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Okay,
bye.
Bye.
Oh
do we have Patreons? We did have some new Patreons.
We did have some new Patreons, but first, while Rachel's looking up our patrons, I'll never be able to say that word. I can't do it.
Because Patreon is weird.
Yeah, because Patreon it forces me to say it a different way.
Yeah.
But do check out our Facebook fan page, or it's called Hollywood Crime Scene Friends, and we do interact with everyone there a lot. We post stories. We talk about cases that are in the news, and we talk about the show. We share pictures and videos. It's really fun. And that is Hollywood Crime Scene Friends on Facebook. You ask to join and we will accept you.
Yeah.
We also have, our social media accounts, Twitter and Instagram, and those are Hollywood Crime Scene. And I think the Twitter is Hwood Crime Scene. And we post stuff there too. We post pictures on Instagram and whatnot. You can tweet us compliments. We'll retweet them on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
It's all very exciting.
Love it. So we did have a few new patrons this month, and very happy about that. Your money really does help us out a lot. We hope that our next goal, we just added a new Patreon goal, and that's for $2,000 a month. We really hope that we can make this show closer to our full-time work,
right?
What we do, because we have some really fun ideas that
we don't have the time to implement yet.
Yeah, we're trying to execute them. We want to make this our sole source of focus in our world. So any money you can donate is so appreciated.
And if you can't donate money, you can help us out by giving reviews on iTunes and not talking about my cough drop. No, I'm just kidding.
We love
even if you just donate 5 stars, if you can just put 5 stars, you don't even have to write a review.
It helps
you
us
can
get
write.
seen.
Yeah, it helps us get seen.
Tell a friend.
So that's a great way to help too if you don't have the cash.
So this week's patrons, we had Ellen, we had Melanie, Mandy. Let's see, and that was it. Thank you guys so
thanks,
much.
guys.
Really appreciate it. Okay.
So that's it. Bye.
Bye.